Welcome to The Explainer. Today we are diving deep into the groovy, socially conscious world of a true musical revolutionary, Curtis Mayfield. We're going to break down how a self-taught guitarist from the housing projects of Chicago basically invented a sound that would define an entire era and light a fire for a whole movement.
You know, this quote from his widow, Alfida, it says it all, doesn't it? It perfectly frames the story we're about to get into, a story about a man defined by just incredible courage, resilience, and an artistic vision that absolutely refused to be silenced.
All right, so to really get Curtis Mayfield's genius, we have to start with the sound itself. I mean, the unique sound he created was so distinctive, it would go on to define an entire city and inspire a whole generation of musicians.
So where did it come from? Well, you might call it a happy accident. His childhood friend and bandmate from The Impressions, Jerry Butler, explains that Curtis found a guitar when he was just 7, and get this, he taught himself to play by pretending it was a piano.
Okay, let's really dig into this because this is the key to his entire vibe. He literally took his knowledge of the piano's black keys and just mapped it onto the guitar. He invented his own tuning, open F sharp. And that right there is what gave his guitar playing that signature delicate, almost ethereal, and super funky quality that you just can't find anywhere else.
And that brings us to the second secret ingredient, his voice, specifically his devotion to the falsetto. Now, at a time when most soul singers were these powerful belters, Mayfield and the Impressions were doing something totally different. They were crafting these complex, almost heavenly harmonies way up in the upper register. It was smooth, it was sophisticated, and it was brand new.
So you put those two things together, that one-of-a-kind F-sharp guitar and those high, intricate harmonies, and boom, that became the heart of what the world would come to know as the Chicago soul sound. It was cooler, more nuanced, more laid back than what was coming out of other cities, but it still had this deep gospel feeling right at its core.
But here's the thing. His incredible sound was really only half the story, because as Mayfield's musical skill grew, so did his social conscience. And that led to this profound, really daring shift in his songwriting that would change not just his career, but the very role of popular music itself.
I mean, you can literally see the pivot happen right here. He started out following the industry's playbook for black artists at the time, make some danceable hits, sing some love songs. But as the world was changing all around him, he went from writing what was expected to writing what he knew needed to be said.
And his peers, people like the legendary Mavis Staples, they noticed it big time. As she put it, the transformation was sudden and just unbelievably powerful. I mean, he was already a genius at crafting a pop hit, but now he was aiming that genius at the biggest, most urgent issues of the day.
And this pivot led to this incredible string of iconic anthems. These songs literally became the soundtrack for a generation that was fighting for equality. They weren't just pop tunes anymore. They were powerful messages of hope, encouragement, and pride that just resonated so deeply within the civil rights movement.
I mean, think about that for a second. This music totally transcended the pop charts. We're talking about songs that Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. himself used to inspire marchers. And then, decades later, a young state senator named Barack Obama used Keep On Pushing for his big keynote speech. The relevance is just absolutely timeless.
Okay, so as we roll into the 1970s, Curtis enters this whole new phase. He goes solo, he takes on Hollywood, and he basically redefines the music business. And he does it all completely on his own terms.
So picture this. You're Curtis Mayfield, and you're asked to write the soundtrack for this movie, Superfly. But you've got a serious moral dilemma. You're deeply troubled by how the movie seems to glorify drugs and violence. So, what do you do?
Well, what he did was, honestly, just brilliant. It was genius. He completely subverted the film's message from the inside out. He created these irresistibly funky, incredible grooves, but then he layered them with lyrics that were a stark warning. Songs like Pusher Man and Freddie's Dead actually turned the soundtrack into this powerful cautionary tale.
And the result? It was extraordinary. The soundtrack wasn't just a hit, it was a phenomenon. It spawned 2 singles that sold over 1 million copies each. And get this, in a super rare feat, the album actually outsold the very movie it was made for. It was definitive proof that a groove could also have a powerful conscience.
And you have to understand, this wasn't just about the art. Curtis was a businessman, a true pioneer. In an industry where black artists were so often denied any real control, he founded his own label, Curtis Records, so he could control his own destiny. His whole philosophy of owning his own work paved the way for future artist moguls like Jay-Z and Dr. Dre.
So, that brings us back to where we started, doesn't it? Back to the story of a man whose spirit, whose absolute drive to create and to communicate, it just refused to be broken, even when faced with something truly unimaginable.
I mean, just try to wrap your head around this. After a tragic accident in 1990 left him paralyzed from the neck down, his determination was nothing short of heroic. Can you imagine the sheer willpower it took to record his final album, New World Order, by painstakingly singing one single line at a time, while lying flat on his back just to get enough breath into his lungs?
So when you add it all up, his legacy is just immense. It's everywhere. He was a musical conscience, a business pioneer, a sound architect, and this deep well of inspiration for funk and hip-hop artists who would sample his work for decades. He was, as Sinead O'Connor so perfectly put it, a giant of gentleness.
So, I'll leave you with this final thought. In a world that is so often defined by anger and division, what can we learn from a man who changed it all with love, with beauty, with encouragement, and with an absolutely 100% undeniably funky groove?